three cities, three states, Nikhil. If Kolkata was a complete administrator mess, you had celebrity craze and selfies where Mumbai was concerned, and of course, the chants of AQI resounding for Rekha Gupta and Lionel Messi in Delhi.
Well, I don't know where to start, Preeti. I agree, that VIP culture was on display, and that's something that clearly didn't go down well with the fans that turned up. You talk about the mess in Kolkata. I also heard, politicians and VIPs being booed in Mumbai as well as Delhi. AQI was just one thing. Everyone else who came on the dais was also booed, and that's what I'm saying. It was a clear sort of a display of, the difference between the haves and haves not. But that's not, my real problem with this tour. I think
you have another grouse.
Yes, and that is to do with the sport of football, right? I mean, nothing against Lionel Messi. I'm a huge Lionel Messi fan. I've seen him play live on multiple occasions. Yet I couldn't get myself to be invested in this event. I did not go and cover it as a journalist or even go there as a fan and see Lionel Messi on the field. And I'll tell you why. That's also because I love the sport of football far more than Lionel Messi. Messi exists because of the sport of football and not vice versa. And the current situation in India is probably the worst or the lowest ebb in Indian football. I mean, Indian football has anyway had nothing to write home about in the last 2-3 decades. Yet, this is probably the worst phase of Indian football. And I'll just let our viewers know why I say that. First and foremost, every country in the world has a national league. That's your main competition from where you get players to the international level. This is the first season that we've not had our national league in the last 3 decades since it was started because it's suspended. There are no takers. No one wants to organize the national league. You know what has that done? There are about 300 professional footballers in India that have been rendered jobless. They have no money. You've had stars. We were celebrating Sunil Chhetri, Gurpreet Singh Sandhu. They've put out posts a couple of months ago on social media saying that, listen, somebody help us out. We don't even have a national league. We are jobless at the moment. That's one thing. You know how much money was spent on this Lionel Messi tour? Nothing against Lionel Messi. He has nothing to do with Indian football. It's not his job to fix Indian football. But the point is, you have a private entity that brings Messi, estimated figures of bringing Lionel Messi here, operation costs, plus
crores.
Is 120 crores. Do you know, when I said National League is not happening, they're asking, All India Football Federation puts a tender out asking, hello, is there an entity that can buy this tender, organize the National League? The minimum guarantee is 37 crores. Anyone who's ready to cough out 37 crore, you can have one season of the ISL, the Indian Super League. There have been no takers for that. Nobody wants to buy it. You know that 120 crores that a private entity spends, they've recovered that money through what? Through gate money. People paid 12,000 rupees to enter. 10 lakh rupees per selfie, people have paid money. There have been partners, there are sponsors, there are companies that have come on as sponsors. State governments has come on as partners and have paid a lot of money. All of that has ensured that 110 crore can be recovered for 72 hours of Lionel Messi. That much money, you could have had 3 seasons of your national league. Unfortunately, we don't have that. And that's not where it ends. Your national football team is in its worst position. You're ranked 142 in the world, which is your worst ranking in the last decade. You're ranked at 142. Do you know, we keep talking about when will India play the World Cup? Before you reach the World Cup level, you have to play at the Asian level. So the Continental Championship now has 24 teams from Asia that participates. Everyone who knows football knows that Asia is probably the weakest continent in football. India has not made it to the 24 teams at the Asian level. And this is the first time in the last 4 editions that they have not made it. Out of the 4 editions, they made it 3 times. They have not made it this time. And this is the position where Indian football is. My point is, again, not that Messi could have fixed it, but while Indian football goes through a scenario like that, I really can't see the opulence that was on display when Lionel Messi came. And I say that as a Lionel Messi fan.
Well, you know, rarely do I see this amount of passion, which Nikhil actually puts out there. But that's a passionate pitch, Nikhil. And we're going to just clip it and play it out there, you know, for our viewers. But sheepishly, Sharda Ugra, now may I take the same question to you after what Nikhil has said? Because it is truly appalling. A country obsessed with our sports stars, not just ours, even international sports stars, but zero passion for sport. if it's not
No,
cricket?
Preeti, I completely agree with what Nikhil has said. I'm just going to clarify your question. It's not that we are not a country that's interested in sport. We are obsessed with stars. Yeah, but the point is that the game of football is not taking place in India. A football league is not happening, not because people don't watch football. Indians watch football in their own way. There are pockets around the country where people watch. If there was an ISL, people would have turned up. I live in Bangalore, where we have where BFC, Bengaluru FC, is widely supported. The problem is of the governance of the game that's happened. At some point, Nikhil will probably know the exact date, they sold the rights of Indian football to a private organization. And now the private organization has bailed out, and now the Indian All India Football Federation is in a jam. And so the problem is not that Indians don't like sport and we only like stars. We like sport and we like stars. But the issue is that the people who are running our sports are incapable. They are politically motivated. They come into this business with an agenda of making money, of doing their own private sort of promotion and all of that. And it's always turned around and attacked on the fans, saying, oh, the fans love sport. I mean, the Mohan Bagan East Bengal derby will fill a stadium every year. We don't even have to be very high ranked in global football, and Nikhil will agree with me on that. But that derby fills the stadium every time in Calcutta. And so you can't say Indians don't love sport and we only love sport stars. We are given shoddy sports. Our sports are organized, governed very shoddily. And that is why we are in a soup like this. When the stars come, people will pay money and go and watch. That's for sure. But you're not giving. There's nothing else that's left. I mean, Abhinav Bindra's tweet about this was absolutely correct as well. He said you can't build sport through moments. You have to build it through making sport accessible for all. This was a private venture, so people did what they wanted to do. They had tickets at crazy prices, and people paid. And you saw what the celebrities did. I mean, turn the attention on the celebrities that turned up and posed for selfies. Political people, film stars, all sports stars. They turned up, and football fans in the country who want to see football, they have no football to watch. I mean, the irony of it could not be more stark than it was over these last 72 hours. It was absolutely absurd.
Mr. Ugra, that's a really nicely nuanced take on it. And you're right, we must correct our question because we're putting the onus on the people where it really shouldn't be. It needs to be on the people who run the sports in our country. But I want to bring in Dilip Charan. He's an image guru. And Dilip, you study optics very closely. And the last, now, of course, 48 hours with what we've seen over the course of the three events of Lionel Messi were borderline embarrassing for us as a country. And it started from Kolkata, it carried through to Mumbai, and then it ended in Delhi.
Preeti, I'm going to take a little different approach to this. I think the message for both politicians, sports managers, and for celebrities is that there is today a generation which is not willing to take this kind of cookie cutter approach to trotting out a star and expecting everyone to genuflect and think that it's a great afternoon or evening out. I think the sports administrators of this country, the political elite of this country, and the film stars must recognize that this is a largely millennial crowd, and this is the kind of crowd that has political impact in other countries. So we should be watching this from the image point of view as a signal to how the masses are responding to feeding them cookie cutter attempts at almost in a Mary Antoinette kind of way, give them cake. So this is really what is going to happen. And we need to understand that this kind of thing is not really acceptable to this generation. And it expresses itself in different ways in different countries. But from an image point of view, I think that what has taken a beating is the fact that India isn't able to organize a high powered tour of this kind by a global star, by a global superstar. And that actually reflects very badly on our ability to actually be a sporting nation of any kind.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to cut my questions. I have the last 9 minutes, and I'm going to give it to all three of you. Driving the conversation further, Nikhil, your final submission. Go ahead.
Well, a couple of things. We talk about that VIP culture that you mentioned, Preeti, and you spoke about the AQI here. I'll just take you back to, fine, what happened in Kolkata? You had the politician hijack that entire event, as we saw, right? And now you've had a situation where people who came and paid good money never got a chance to watch any of Lionel Messi. You talk about embarrassment. What happened in Hyderabad? Yes, the whole event was organized much better than Kolkata, but it looked like it was a private event of the chief minister. I saw hoardings in Hyderabad being put up of the chief minister alongside Lionel Messi. Clearly, the state government had some sort of stake in this entire event. Then what happens? You see him play football. There are memes, galore on the internet of, him playing football with Lionel Messi, not only embarrassing himself, but just, people around who follow football, but it was a private event. And, and all this while, there was no talk about footballers being there. Again, as I say, fine, this was a event that, was looked at commercially. You had to cover the cost. Fine, people get a chance to get their selfies, so on and so forth. In all of this, I go back to Indian football. In all of this, if you're thought of, let's say, somewhere a Lionel Messi coming here and involving the footballers. I spoke about how the apathy that we see towards the football sport and the national team in general. But you have an under-17 boys team in India that's doing reasonably well. You have an under-23 boys team that's done very well overseas in the recent past. You have the women's team, by the way, which I was talking to you about, that the men's team hasn't qualified for the Continental Championship. The women's team has. Nobody even knows that. They have qualified for that. In fact, they have an outside chance, a small chance albeit, but have an outside chance of qualifying for the Women's World Cup, right? Now, here are three teams that are doing well despite the system. I'm sure somebody could have thought of, allowing them a half-hour audience with Lionel Messi, with a translator. I'm not saying he would have played a game of football, but if he spent half an hour speaking to these three teams that I spoke about, maybe something could have come out of this entire exercise. But all we saw was people clicking selfies.
Fair point.
And on that, I agree with most things that Sharda said, but I disagree on that thing that Indian people love sports. They only love sports stars. I'll give you cricketing examples. I oftentimes go and watch Ranji matches. You say cricket is a religion. It is played to empty houses. Big matches. I've gone to see Delhi, Mumbai empty.
Okay.
Virat Kohli turned up for a Ranji Trophy game. Firoz Kotla was packed. Everyone came to see Virat Kohli.
So they come in for the stars.
Nobody wants to see.
Nikhil agrees with my question.
And just one more bit about, I agree. I've seen Mohun Bagan, East Bengal matches. They are sold out. I agree. But look at the state of those clubs. They have no money. They've sold out. They've sold out to corporate entities.
Nikhil, I'd love to give you more time, but I'm running out of time. And you know I would, because you're speaking superbly well. I don't know why I'm moderating this.
Nikhil can have my time. Nikhil is brilliant.
No, Ms. Subra, go ahead. Nikhil's very passionate this evening. Go ahead. No, come in, ma'am.
Nikhil can take all my time. No, I mean, what we can sort of discuss this whole thing about are we a sport-loving country or not? But exactly, this event shows you that our sport is at the level at which it's organized, presented, and shown to us is always shown from an event point of view, not from the point of view of an athlete, what they are able to do, not from the point of view of sports. India does not organize sports events for sports reasons. They organize sports events for every other reason except sport. We are going to stage the Commonwealth Games for whatever reason. We are going to stage supposedly the Olympic Games for whatever reason. Similarly, Lionel Messi's event was nothing about sport. It was just about people jumping on the bandwagon of getting this great football player to the country and taking photographs alongside him and doing a little bit of, and trying to make money from bringing in genuine football fans to watch the greatest modern, arguably the greatest player of his generation, one of the top two. So this whole thing of sports ke liye, we will create this other ecosystem around it. It's not about sports. It's about tamasha. So just look at the top. When you're trying to understand what's happening in Indian sport, look at the top and who's running it and what their priorities are. I think this event, even though it's a private event, it reflects exactly how Indian sport is run from a top-down manner. And we've seen how shambolic it was. So,
Mr. Sharon, may I come to you? Quick word, sir.
Yes, I think that, the fact that we are able to protest and make a noise about this gives us one of the few occasions to actually vent. And I think that tells us that there is a lot of, in a sense, unexpressed anger about the space that those at the top, at the elite, are able to occupy. And in some senses, the fact that the masses were cheated and were willing to express their anger, whether it was on the subject of AQI, or whether it was poor organization, or whether it was too many celebrities in Mumbai, it didn't matter. The fact is that the, the vast masses of this country are feeling deprived, and this, to my mind, was an expression of that in various formats in different cities.
But Mr.
Can I
Chairman,
just
you
say
know,
one thing very quickly?
yeah, of
Can I
course,
just say
come
one
in,
thing?
come in. Yeah.
Alongside Messi, there were two other players, one of whom is a World Cup winner. And the other, Luis Suarez, who was a great player from Uruguay. But nobody noticed them. No, none of these fancy film star, politician people had any interest in who these guys were. They were incredible athletes, incredible modern footballers, two World Cup winners. But they know there was only Messi, because Messi is like the name that they all know and they're familiar with.
Mr. Chairman, you have 1 more minute and I'll give the final moment to Nikhil.
No, I think that we really need to look at ourselves as to whether these values of whether elites are being uh, played to, or whether we want to be a sporting nation. Because as Sharda said, if we want to host the Olympics, we need to create that sporting mania in this country, and it needs to be nurtured ground up.
Nikhil, you know, your angst is true, but it's also something, it's a bit of a deja vu. We see it over and over again, and then and that's where the angst keeps brewing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, Preeti. I pretty much said what I wanted to, but if I can use this opportunity to put my message across as to, everyone who was involved. There were corporates, there were governments. I'll tell you, there was a Times of India report that I've just read. I was talking about the National League. They even approached the government. And at the moment, the central government is very keen to put this image out of India that, we're a sporting country because you're organizing the Commonwealth Games and you are planning to host the Olympic Games. Unfortunately for Indian football, the organizers are told, or the stakeholders are told that, listen, we can't keep bailing you out all the time. Figure out a way to organize the National League. So I hope if all of that money that will be diverted towards Commonwealth Games, which I might add is not a profit-making exercise. You end up losing a lot of money. All that money that will be diverted towards the Olympics, which is again not a profit-making exercise, you'll end up losing a lot of money because eventually you're saying your goal is to push sport. Maybe some of it can be put towards football. So we can have our own Messis. I don't know if we'll have our own Messis, but even if we get 5 other Sunil Chetris or 5 other Gurpreet Sandhus or Baichung Bhutias, I think we'll be in a much better position.
Nikhil, tell me, is it football that's got your heart more than cricket? What's the sport?
No, I love all sport. That's what I want the country to do, right? Love the sport and not sports people. I fell in love with football, cricket, all of those sports because I had access to that. I played all those sports. I fell in love with the sport. Today there's a Messi. He might not be there. Somebody else will turn up. I used to love Roger Federer, but he's gone. Now I enjoy watching Sinner play. Because if you love the sport, you'll continue. If you love sports stars, that'll be very short.
All right, the passion needs to endure. All right, I appreciate all 3 of you for coming in.